All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Debbie, I promised you you'd be up first. What's going on, dear?
Hello?
Hello, Debbie.
Hello, how are you? This is an honor to talk to you.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to talk to you on this fine holiday. I think the weather's going to warm up maybe a little bit, but the wind looks chilly. What do you think?
The wind's just making a mess out of my yard.
Yeah, it's like kind of day when you put your paper plate down without anything on it and it just blows away.
Yeah, true. Listen, I'll get to the point. My question is this. Homeowners Association versus deed restrictions.
Yes.
Can we enforce deed restrictions?
Yes. Deed restrictions are absolutely enforceable. But here's the problem with deed restrictions. They're much harder to change. And what I mean by that is, okay, if I write a deed and I say you must abide by the Homeowners Association's bylaws, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you have a mechanism to change that going forward, and we have votes and all these people involved. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I can sell you a piece of property, and I get to be what they call the dominant estate. So I'm the original seller. Mm-hmm. And I sell you a chunk of land, and I say, in exchange for selling this to you, here are the deed restrictions of what you can and can't do with it. Mm-hmm. And you're stuck with those. The only way to undo those is to return that parcel to the dominant estate. So then you would have to buy, or somebody would have to buy up. So here's the classic example. I have a 3-acre piece, and I cut it into 3 1-acre lots, and I put deed restrictions in them. The only way to undo those deed restrictions is for somebody or all the owners of the 3 estates to reunite those parcels into the dominant estate, and then it can be undone again.
Okay, I understand, and I'm going to interrupt you. I don't want to change the deed restrictions for my small development here. Right. I want to enforce.
Yeah, then you go to court and you say, Judge, I have a right under the deed restriction because I'm a beneficiary of that restriction. Okay, mm-hmm. And that's always an interesting question too. I mean, a guy from 100 miles away can't just walk in and go, "You're violating your deed restriction."
Yeah, well, this is my next-door neighbor who's violating a deed restriction next door.
And what I'm talking about is you guys were probably cut out of the same dominant estate, okay? Mm-hmm. So because of that, you have a right to expect that the deed restrictions will be obeyed. And therefore, you have standing to go to court and say, Judge, here's what they're doing. Now, sometimes courts will say that the violation is de minimis, meaning it's so small that we're not going to trifle with it. Other times the court will say, no, we're going to enforce it. Also, though, you can run into a concept called unclean hands. So I'll give you an example. If you're violating a deed restriction and you want to take care of my violating a deed restriction, I can say, Judge, she doesn't have clean hands. So who is she to tell me what to do? And the judge goes, I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're violating the deed restrictions too. So between the two of you, you're both in violation. I'm not going to give either of you relief.
Okay.
So we have all those concepts. But, yes, you can sue.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We wanted to know how that was, in relationship with homeowners and versus zoning, because their argument is, well, zoning said I can do it.
Right.
Well, that's zoning for the whole township. That's not this development.
And zoning, this is a big issue. Zoning is different, right? So I always try to explain to people, zoning is what the state or the municipality, but it's really the powers for the state to tell you what you can and can't do with your land. Mm-hmm. Deed restrictions come from a different body of law, just as easements and adverse possession and right-of-ways and those things are independent of zoning law. Mm-hmm. All right?
Okay. You've answered my question. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Have a great Memorial Day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
540-0580. A political question. What is the political question?
Hey, Mr. Robinger, how are you, sir?
Good.
Real quick here. On Election Day, there was an individual running for a local office, running against an incumbent. The incumbent partner, as another supervisor, came and threatened that candidate that was running against his counterpart.
Okay.
what legal recourse does that individual have that township official came and threatened him?
Well, I don't know what the threat was.
Okay. Well, one was a personal harassment, and then there was a threat. The harassment, and I got to be careful of giving too much up because, anyway, the harassment was he brought up his religious faith, told him, you as a person running for office, you have a religious faith, and therefore there's a place for people like you. You're going to burn in hell.
Okay.
And then he turned around and said that when you win, or if you win, I will make your life hell. You will pay.
I don't know. How threatening is it? I mean, is he going to stab the guy or just show up at all the township meetings and ask tough questions?
Well, no, he's the supervisor.
Okay, well, then he's really going to show up at all the township meetings and ask tough questions.
Correct.
The answer is I don't know. It sounds like political speech at some level, right?
I guess.
Making someone's life hell and threatening to blow their head off really aren't the same thing, are they? It could be. But
as a township official, being the president supervisor,
right,
the chair supervisor, he should not be threatening the opposing candidate.
Threatening them how, though? I'm not sure what the threat was.
Okay, is it harassment of the candidate?
But if it's for a political purpose, then it serves a legitimate purpose. Therefore, it can't be criminal harassment. Is it? Listen, did the guy act badly? Yes.
Yes.
But is it actionable? The answer is probably not.
Okay, so it's something that should be brought before the Board of Elections?
I mean, you could, but I don't know what difference it's going to make. Listen, way back in the day, they used to cane each other on the floor of the House or the Senate, right? And they used to have duels, and people used to say things. And even these days, didn't somebody call the president a liar during a speech? And didn't somebody else, just call somebody other city politician pond scum? I mean,
it's politics as it is politics.
Yeah. So I think your friend just needs to calm down.
Okay.
And forget about it. Move on. Tell everybody what a bad guy this is and work to get him unelected.
Very good.
All right?
Thank you, sir.
Everything is a front to everybody. Traffic tickets. What do you want to know about traffic tickets? Yep, you.
Oh, it's Chris. Hey.
Hey, Chris. I didn't have a name on there, so I had to be clever about it. See how I did that? No, it's not. Matt's like Vector going, it's not my... For some reason, line 3, and I'm going to pull a Durgan here for a minute. Okay. These phones don't work! Line 3 is, for some reason, the name doesn't always pop up, and nobody knows why. But they're working on DOS software around here, so that's quite possibly the issue. All right, anyhow. Sorry, Chris.
It was 5/2. I took a day off to do some spring cleaning, and I was making a couple of trips. I was emptying out my garage, taking stuff to the dump and getting rid of stuff that I don't use, and I got a traffic ticket about a block away from my house. So I spoke with the officer for a little while afterwards and everything, and he gave me 40 in a 25 zone. The fine's $142. And 2 days later, I got a notice of withdrawal of charges.
Okay.
And says, pursuant to Rule 457 of the PA Rules of Criminal Procedure, the court has agreed to withdraw the charges in the above case, which I thought, well, the cop saw my side of it, and, we got along well and everything after he just dropped the charges because I was a nice guy.
Right.
Well, then I got a ticket in the mail.
What's the new one?
It's the same. They refiled the charges. It's the same ticket. It's not the exact same ticket. It's not the one the guy wrote me.
What's different about it? Anything?
Well, from what I gather, I talked to a police officer this morning at Turkey Hill, and he said that the cop could have made a mistake on the citation, and that's why they dropped the charges and refiled them.
Right, which
but
he can do.
Doesn't tell me what they did.
Which he can do, unfortunately for you. He can do that. He can withdraw and refile.
Okay.
Although I'm just curious why he went that way instead of just amending it at the hearing. What the real issue was.
Okay.
But you can take the hearing, and you can defend on the speed, keeping in mind that 15 over is going to be a few points on your license, right? 3 or 4.
So I'm trying to keep everything clean because in December I got to go back for Act 235 recertification up at Hack, and I'm trying to keep my record clean. I mean, it's spotless. I don't have anything on it.
Yeah,
I'm a good guy.
I got you. So the answer is... The answer is that counts for something. I was just out in Fulton County on a ticket, okay? And I had a guy whose driver's record's completely clean. Nothing, ever. And that's exactly what I said to the turnpike officer. He's like, I saw that. I'm like, well, you think that's good enough reason to give him no points? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. He goes, he's a pretty old guy for nothing on his record. And so that's how we resolved it.
Okay.
So that counts for something. But, sometimes it helps to have the lawyer there, too. So think about taking a lawyer along to the traffic hearing. Of course, if you lose in front of the district judge, you can always appeal it to the Court of Common Pleas. But I'll give you an example, and I don't know if it's still the policy, but at least in Lancaster for a long time, and in some other counties, their theory is if you appeal a summary, and this is what it used to be down there, so I'm not sure because I haven't done one in a while, is we won't work it out with you if you appeal it because you should have worked it out at the first hearing.
Right.
So all your deals have to be there. So you have to be careful because every once in a while you can't work it out at the first hearing. And as I've said to the district attorney before, I remember doing this in one case saying, well, the guy represented himself. He had no idea that was your policy. How's he going to know that? I mean, I knew that, right?
Yeah.
But how's the well, it's too bad. Words on the street, And you're like, okay.
Yeah, so I'm not happy about the fine, but it's the points I'm more worried about.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few ways to fix that, boss. Okay. If you need to talk to me off the air, feel free to look me up, okay?
All right.
Got to go to break. Yeah. I'm back. 540-0580, answering your legal questions here on this beautiful Labor Day. Or no, Memorial Day. Oh, no, I'm in the wrong half of the year again. I hate that. I always reverse the two. 4th of July, I'm usually pretty clear on. It's because it's around my birthday, so I think I can put 2 and 2 together. The sunfish are spawning right this time of year. Not around here, they're probably done, but up in Western New York when I was a kid, that was the thing for Memorial Day, was to go to Lake Chautauqua and go to where the spawning beds were, and you could just catch sunfish after sunfish after sunfish and fill a cooler up with them. And they're pretty good eating if you get enough, if you know what I mean. You only have a few. There's not enough meat there. Art. Oh, no? I can't get you, Art? What's going on here? I can't pick Art up for some reason. I don't know. No? Art? Oh, he doesn't have a question. He's just talking to you. Quit talking my producer's ears off. What's the matter with you, Art? I think Art had a question about something. Who knows? 540-0580. Oops, I think I hung up on somebody, too, while I was at it. So if I just hung up on you, just call right back, and I will hit you up here. I guess we got Rick coming in the queue right now, so I'll grab him as soon as he's up. Rick. Sorry about that. What's going on?
Hey, I'm from Chautauqua Lake area, too, and I prefer the crappie fishing up there.
Well, the crappie fishing's even earlier, right? That's over now.
Yeah, it's over now.
But, that was a great lake because, and I shouldn't say great lake because people think it's like a great lake, but that is about 19 miles long. It's got 2 basins, a deep basin and a shallow basin, so you have 2 different kinds of fishing. You got a big walleye fishery, you got a muskie fishery, you get crappies in the spring, tons of sunfish, smallmouth bass in the one basin, largemouth bass in the other, but kind of a mix everywhere. Gars, a little of everything in there, huh?
Yeah, I still have my family reunion up there at the Mayville Park, and I just can't wait to go every year. It's so beautiful up there.
I know. Actually, my mom worked in the county building right up there in Mayville for years. So maybe we'll ask her about it if we can get her on the show here again.
There you go.
What's your question, boss?
I don't have any questions. I got all my legal problems taken care of.
Good. Just call it in to say happy holidays.
That's right.
All right.
Happy holidays.
You too, man.
All right, later.
Mike, what's going on? Mike. Mike. Well. I'm just laughing because I wasn't sure if that was like a heavy breather or just a cell phone disconnect. But either way, it was interesting. William, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on, William?
Okay, Carl, I thoroughly enjoy your show. I am a Pennsylvania resident. I also own property in Florida. And I have a handgun, which I purchased in Pennsylvania through the background check at least 30 years ago.
Okay.
Now, I was down at the Tampa Bay Gun Show, and I was shocked to see that within the building there were FFL dealers who had signs prominently saying, "We do not buy nor do we sell to out-of-state residents."
Right.
I later found out that if I could produce my water bills and electric bills and the tax bills, that they would deal with me, but I didn't want to buy anything.
Right.
Now, along within the physical boundaries of the Tampa Bay Gun Show, there were private sellers. They had their table set up, and it was cash and carry. No ID, no records, no nothing.
Right.
And they said, well, that's Florida law. Now, if I wanted to just give this to the fella, am I violating any Pennsylvania laws since I purchased it and there's one of those forms in a gun shop here?
What do you mean, just to go down there and sell it?
No, just to give it to the fella.
Oh, you can give it. Well, let me explain it this way. Once you purchase a gun lawfully in Pennsylvania, take it to another state, you can dispose of it under that state's law or appropriate federal regulation without any difficulty.
Okay. In other words, I'm not violating any of the laws in Pennsylvania by doing that.
Your gun is not registered in Pennsylvania, right?
Well, there's...
No, I mean, it's not registered. We don't have registration. You filled out some paperwork when you bought it.
Correct.
But it's yours to take where you want, and you can take it. Now, if you go into a state that requires registration of the handgun, you'll have to comply with their law, right?
I see.
But if you go into Florida, where, as I understand it, they recognize our concealed carry permits, for instance, down there.
Right.
And they have a pretty loosey-goosey regime. So if you can just carry that handgun around down there and you can just sell it, it's yours to sell. Now, of course, if you knowingly gave it to a felon, you'd violate federal law and probably a Florida law. Mm-hmm. And Florida has some laws against carrying open. I know that. So you'd have to just be careful to not violate their laws, but it's yours to sell as you please.
Okay. Well, you answer my question, and I listen every week.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
By the way, I forgot to say, I think I'm going to head over to Harrisburg Beer and Cigar after this and get me some cigars. Great place to get cigars. And I seriously say this. It's a beer distributorship with a great selection of beers. I mean, Matt, have you ever been over there, Matt? Harrisburg Beer and Cigar? You have, yeah. They got a great selection of craft brews. I mean, really do. He also gets a lot of really good specials. So, the other day he had the Languinista IPA. I mean, like for half Lagunitas, yeah, and it was for like half the price that anybody else had. I saw. I mean, I can't don't quote me exactly on that, but I noticed that the price point was pretty low. I guess they got a good buy on them or something. But their cigars selection is not like this stereotype people have. I'm going to pick up one of these dried out little cigars from a little rack at the beer distributorship there as an impulse buy. This is a full-fledged cigar store operation built right into the beer distributorship, so you can kill two birds with one stone, and they even got a great lounge where you can go over and smoke one of your cigars while you drink one of your beers. Also, and they're over there on Union Deposit, CDL Labor Logistics, you've heard their ad here on the show, and they're a sponsor as well. They're seeking experienced, qualified commercial drivers with clean records for long-term, high-paying driving positions, both local and regional. Call 866-293-1880. Well, by the way, they just called me yesterday to mention that they're also looking for team drivers for team routes with $75,000 a year guaranteed minimum. So they're looking for team drivers. So if you're a CDL driver and you're looking for something local or you're looking for something national or regional, CDL Labor Logistics, who you want to talk to. And again, $75K guaranteed for team driving positions, 866-293-1880. And if you can't get a hold of them for some reason or you didn't jot down the number, just hit me up on my Facebook page and I'll give you the information. Brian, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Yes. In the filing of a motion, if you want to serve the other party, what constitutes valid service?
Well,
U.S. mail, certified mail?
You say motion, so there's already an open lawsuit?
Yes.
Then, according to the Pennsylvania Rules of Civil Procedure, if we're under those, assuming that's the case,
yes,
then first-class mail is valid service.
All right. That takes care of my question.
All right. Original process, we'll just give a little caveat for other people that are listening. The first time you serve somebody, the rules are different because we want to make sure you got the right person. But once you have an address of record for them and they've been served, it's their duty to change their address of record if it changes. Now, there is one little rub in this whole system, which is you and I know that not all first-class mail makes it from A to B, right?
Correct.
So presumptively it's valid service, and I guess if you could convince a judge – see, the courts want to believe that the U.S. Postal Service is flawless, but it is possible for things to literally disappear in the mail. And as a result, I'm not always convinced, considering the fact that I sometimes get other lawyers' mail, right, or other businesses in town's mail, and then we send it back or we reroute it. I suspect some other people just toss them in the circular file. So I'm not always convinced that that's perfect, but in this day and age, that is the standard, first-class mail. All right?
Very good. Thank you.
All right, boss. 540-0580. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. When we get back, I want to talk to Mike about DUIs.
Let's return to Weekend Appointment with Carl Rominger on WHP 580.
Oh, I want to give a little shout-out to another radio guy that I ran into last night, Denny. Sorry about that, brother. You were so quiet all night, and then the action happened. That's a little poker reference. A little Texas Hold'em last night. Had a nice time. And before, Mike, I'm going to take you 1 second, Mike, but I want to point something else out here. I got an email from a fella who says, he sent me an email on the 5th. Says, at some point on the 5th of some month, is it illegal to start a militia or be involved in one? If so, how do we defend ourselves against a tyrannical government besides the right to bear arms? Thank you. And then he says, I listened to the podcast that day, and didn't hear an answer to this. Any chance you can please address this? Well, the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia, and the history of militias is a quasi-civil group. It's sort of like the Elks with guns. And so it was like a little private army, and sometimes the government would, take the militia and use them, and sometimes the militia would, do what they needed to do, and there was a coordination between the private citizens and the government. So it's an interesting bird. I don't think there's anything that prevents anybody from forming an organization whose purpose is to be a militia. Of course, the day that the militia declares, right, the day that you declare that the federal government is no longer worthy of following, well, we call that sedition, and then you become guilty of treason. And whether you are found guilty of treason and hung to death, or whether or not you become the new patriots, all depends on who wins. And that's how it works, folks, because remember this. The founding fathers were traitors, right? They were traitors to the King of England. They were nothing more than a ragtag band of people who didn't want to obey the government. But they won. And when you win, you're no longer the traitor. You're now the founding father. That's just the way it works. Poor Benedict. All right, Mike, you're on the air.
Carl, how are you doing?
Good.
Carl, can you give me some information on first-time DUI, clean, never been arrested, clean driving record, what takes place?
Yeah, a first-time DUI offender.
I blew 1.1.
And was it a blow, an actual blow?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, breathalyzers are highly inaccurate, so we have an issue there.
To the good or to the bad?
To the benefit of the defendant. They're just highly inaccurate, which means you could have had a much lower blood alcohol content than that reading. And here's the dealio. You're probably eligible for a program called ARD, which is Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition, okay?
Right.
That will cause you not to have to go to jail. If you had to plead guilty as charged or found guilty as charged, you would spend 2 days in jail, and you will lose your driver's license for a year, but you'll be able to get a work license for the second 11 months of it, okay?
Okay.
But if you get into ARD, you'll only lose your license for a month, and then you'll be able to have a regular license / work license, whatever it is, but it's going to be one hard month loss.
Okay, so I'm definitely going to lose my license.
Well, no, because here's what I'm telling you. In a case like yours, I may be working to try to get the district attorney to admit you into ARD, but at the same time drop your BAC down a tier based on the inaccuracies of the breathalyzer.
Right.
And then you don't lose your license at all, because above a .08 but below a 1.0, there's no license loss. So you're in a little gray area there, my friend. And the other alternative is, if you don't mind having a little criminal background, but your driver's license is essentially important to you, we sometimes would plead you guilty to DUI rather than ARD, but to the lowest tier. Or we would take the trial and go for the acquittal, and just try to get the general impairment if we could, so there'd be no driver's license loss. So there's lots of different options available for you. But the absolute worst-case scenario is you're going to be able to not drive for at least 1 month and 2 days in jail. Most likely you'll take ARD, which is what most people do. Then you're going to lose your license for a month, pay a bunch of fines and things, and take a hit on your insurance.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which is sometimes why, we want to know more of the facts of the case. Why'd they stop you?
Why?
Yeah.
He said that I was having trouble standing between the lines, but it was a very rainy night that night, hitting a lot of water on the roadway. But to be honest with you, Carl, I was fine to drive. I mean, 1.1. I mean, like I said, I was very coherent.
Well, here's my point on that. And somebody out there is going to be, one of our dear listeners will be like, "You had any amount of alcohol in your system, you're not fine to drive." Well, here's the answer. The law doesn't say that. Second of all, those breathalyzers are so inaccurate that when you say you were fine, you may have been below the legal limit completely. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And for years, the government went in front of juries and said, this is a highly scientific instrument, and this is a very good result, and put this man in jail. And now they're on the run because judges finally paid attention and figured out what the defense attorneys have been saying for decades. And a big shout-out goes to Justin McShane locally, by the way, because he's the one that got Dauphin County to wrap their brains around the breathalyzer. Now we're finding out the blood isn't that accurate. The state police blood results are plus or minus 6% on their own certainty rate. And a lot of people thought blood was just, dead on. My point is, lots of people have been put in jail on breathalyzers, and lots of bad things have happened to people, and it turns out that those things are terribly inaccurate. So for you to sit here and say, I don't think I was drunk, but the machine says I was above the legal limit, that doesn't surprise me one bit.
Okay. What? So you say that the breathalyzer is inaccurate too. In other words, I could have, with the blood being taken 45 minutes later, I could have been below.
Well, I'm saying that your blood could have been a different result. Absolutely. Your actual BAC may not be anywhat related to that number that breathalyzer gave you.
Okay. Do you find that it's mostly lower? Most of the time?
No, there's an error rate, my friend. There's an error rate.
Okay.
So, did they take your blood?
Yes, they did.
Oh, so you're going to have a blood result.
Yes. You're
talking about the portable breath test.
Yes.
Well, that's even more inaccurate than the big breath test I was talking about.
Okay, no, they took me over to the medical center and drew blood.
What medical center?
Hershey Medical Center.
Okay. Was that Lebanon County or Dauphin County?
Well, Hershey, I'm not sure.
No, I mean, where were you when you got the DUI, or you don't remember?
I was just on the Middletown side of Hummelstown.
Okay, so you were in Dauphin County.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the short answer is you're going to get a Hershey blood result, and that has a plus or minus accuracy rate as well. I think Hershey's more solid than Good Samaritan's results have been found to be ineligible for admission in court in Lebanon County recently. Hershey's results are probably going to be fairly accurate.
Well, they sent it to Willow Grove.
NMS, National Medical Service.
Yes.
What's their result? Do you have it back or you don't know?
Didn't get it back yet. No.
Okay. Well, NMS is interesting because if you fight it and you take the trial, they don't always send the right guy out. Because they don't have the manpower to do it.
So it's a roll of the dice. What I decide to do. I don't want to have a criminal record. Don't have one now.
Right. And you can live with 1 month driver's license loss.
Yeah, I can get my brother to take me to from work.
So then what we're going to do is probably just put you in ARD, and this whole discussion is academic.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Very good.
All right,
Carl.
Mike. If you need to talk to me off the air, feel free.
Thank you, Carl.
All right. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
David, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger, who's rounding out his hour here. David.
Hey, Carl,
Yeah.
This is Dave from New Holland. How are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Hey, not too bad. I got a big problem, though. I have a criminal record. I got a Class 2 felony back from 1993. However, I'm also a veteran. I served from 93 to 96 active duty, and 97 to 2000 in the Army National Guard. Unfortunately, I can't seem to get back in. I'm not sure what's changed, but I can't. I got job offers close to me now, and for some reason I can't get back into the military. And it never used to be a problem, so I'm wondering what's changed.
Well, they seem to always be changing the rules on prior crimes and entries into the military. Mm-hmm. So my I say joke, but my explanation is when they need lots of people, they are less selective.
Okay.
When they don't need a lot of people, they become more selective.
Gotcha.
And right now, I don't think we're expanding the military. If anything, the budget is getting chopped.
Gotcha.
So that may be the problem. But have you talked with the recruiter about it?
Yeah, I sure have, and they can't get me back in. That's just the rule as of right now.
As of right now, yeah.
You know what? I was in the infantry, and I actually handled every single small arm that the military has to offer. So I've got plenty of experience, but I can't legally own a handgun here in Pennsylvania, and I can't get back into the Army National Guard.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you that the recruiters are your best source in those questions because it's really from their standpoint, the more people they sign up, the happier they are, right?
Yeah.
So you know that they're going to try to get you in. In fact, if anything, my experience is if you showed up, if you showed up, with all kinds of impediments, but they could get you in, they would.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Hey, thank you.
All right, good luck. And hey, you know what? He wants to serve. What's wrong with that? Alan, you're on WHP 580. Hey, Alan.
Hello.
Yep.
Providing shelter.
Oh, you've got a previous caller that was talking about a militia.
Yes.
Just a little bit of background for that caller. The original Militia Act was in 1792, about a year after the Constitution was adopted, and it basically drafted all white males from, I believe, about the age of 17 to 45. That was amended in the 1860s to include African Americans, and it wasn't until the 1903, the Dick Act, or the Militia Act of 1903, that basically you have the National Guard. And in the 1903 Dick Act, it says that you have the recognized militia of the United States, which is the National Guard and Reserve, and then you have what's called the unorganized militia of the United States, which is all males that are fit to serve from about 18 to 45, or males who are prior service up to the age of, I believe, 60 or 65. So technically, the caller is already a member of the United States militia, the unorganized militia, if he is between the ages of around 18 to 45. So it's semantics. As you said, if you want to have a group that just happens to have guns and be trained in how to use them, that's their business. But technically, the caller and the majority of the males in this country are members of the unorganized militia. I would recommend that, if he wants to start a club, it be called a nature club because it's less likely to make anybody nervous or get on any kind of watch list.
Don't call it the Tea Party Patriots Club, right? Or you'll get extra scrutiny.
Because, I think I've heard something on the news about that.
Alan, I got to go to break, but thank you very much. That's very informative.
No problem. Have a nice weekend.
All right, you too.
Let's return to Weekend Appointment with Carl Rominger on WHP 580.
Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Oh, boy, winding down. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I have to figure out what the big holiday plan is here. I think I'm going to do a little work today, though. So I don't consider this work yet. Mike, you had a malpractice question.
Hey, what's going on, my friend?
Thank you for holding so patiently.
Yeah. Can we sue the cellular phone company because they screwed up on my signal?
What did they do?
What do you mean what they do? They billion-dollar corporations, they can't have a signal that doesn't get screwed up because I'm going past some place where maybe there's not a tower? What the heck
I just thought you were doing one of your heavy breathing things again.
No, I don't do that. So I got a question or two for you about the malpractice thing here.
Okay, fire away.
Okay, first off, when you're going for an operation, before these doctors, cut you up like a fillet, it's kind of interesting. Right before you go into the operating room, they pull that piece of paper out and say, now look, when you come out of this, you could have chipped teeth, you could have some damage, you could have this, that, and worst case scenario, you could be dead. And then they have you sign this thing that you totally understand. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm just feeling the love here,
Right.
So let's say something happens, even though you sign that. If they were somewhat negligent, can you still sue them?
The answer is yeah. Say somewhat negligent. See, informed consent is the concept that not negligence, but that if a reasonably prudent doctor did it in a reasonably prudent fashion, these are all acceptable outcomes, including death. So, here's an example. When you go in for an emergency heart stent, let's say, and there's a good chance you're going to die anyhow, and there's a 50% chance that the stenting is going to kill you, we wouldn't say it's medical malpractice for the doctor to stent you when the likelihood of survival with the stent is better than without, even though the likelihood of survival with the stent is still 50-50. So the question wouldn't be – the question about negligence is did he do everything the way a reasonably prudent doctor would? Then there's no negligence. Mm-hmm. But if you didn't have informed consent, then that's a separate cause of action. So if the doctor failed to mention that the procedure could kill you, then you could claim, or your state could claim rather, right, that you didn't fully know what you were getting into.
Yeah, well, you know what? I do believe, Carl, and I don't know how high the percentage would be, and I think you would agree with my next statement here as well, that there are a certain percent of doctors that will operate when it's not necessary, and that term is called over-surgery or, surgery that was not needed. I know that's out there, and so what I'm thinking is before you go under the knife, you might want to tell the doctor, say, Doc, now listen, if I don't come out of this operation at least the same or better, I got a nice little insurance policy myself here, just to make sure that I'm covered. What do you think, Doc?
Well, I think the answer is the doctor may say, I'm declining to do a surgery on you.
Well, that's good. Then you know that he is not confident what he was going to do, and maybe it was going to be one of those operations where they were going to rip you off for the $50,000 that you shouldn't have been in that surgery anyway.
Well, Mike, everything's a business decision, even in medical care. All right, I'm going to take some more legal callers, brother. All right, I love it. Dee, you're on WHP 580. What's going on?
Yes, my name is Dee, and I have a question. Perhaps you or someone in your audience might be able to help me with.
Okay.
Last year, I attended the graduation ceremony of the Naval Academy in Annapolis. A member of my family happened to be a member of that class. When I was looking at the roster of graduates, noticed that there were 6 Pakistanis who were graduating class. And knowing the history of what is happening in Pakistan today in regards to terrorism, etc., you could understand that I might be a little confused. After the ceremony, I asked my family member who was in the class, what do these men do when you stand there and take an oath, which we watched, to uphold the Constitution of the United States and also against any subversive action from without or within? What do they say? And my family member said, well, they don't take an oath. They go someplace else and they then take an oath to their own country. So my question is, can anybody explain to me the lunacy of why our Naval Academy would be graduating 6 men from a country that is at war with us?
Well, first of all, we're not at war with Pakistan officially. Second of all...
Yes, I like the official part.
Second of all, though, you need to understand this, that we at the United States War College in Carlisle, and I say we meaning the town, we have plenty of people from all kinds of foreign countries attending. And the Naval Academy and the other military academies bring in people from around the world to build lifelong ties between the military people. And the fact of the matter is that someday some kid from that Naval Academy, maybe your family member, will be able to pick up the phone and call his old classmate who's now a commanding general in a Pakistani military facility and say, hey, we need your help, or can you really tell me what's going on here and maybe diffuse a potential situation? So there are massive military exchanges, and people have done this. We've been doing this forever. So there's nothing unusual about it. And in fact, the long term is the more foreigners who serve with our people, the better they understand America and Americans, and they become the back door when you have some crazy government that's saying one thing. You have the military saying, no, we know these guys. This is not a true picture, and they're not as brainwashed. So I understand you may have some concern, but the reality is that this is building a lifelong tie with our academy graduates, which will serve our military purposes. And I would tell you that almost any military person who served with foreign exchange officers and or has participated in education with them will tell you that during times of crisis, these become the back channels that allow governments to communicate. So,
I can understand the rationale of the back channel. I see the logic of that. But then the other side of that coin would be the terrorists who murdered our soldiers on the base.
But that's not the same person. Not all Muslims or Pakistanis are terrorists, right?
Not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists up to this date have been Muslim.
Or Irish Catholic. Let's not forget about Irish Catholic. They might have had some Irish Catholics in the class, too. You agree with me, Irish Catholics have committed acts of terrorism, right?
No. That's not right.
That's
no.
the IRA? You never heard of the IRA?
I'm talking about in our country.
I'm talking about the IRA. They blew up people in England.
Yeah.
All right, there's all types out there. I bet her relation was kind of like, oh, grandma. Reminds me of my grandmother fresh off the boat from Nazi Germany. You know what I mean? All right, guys, I will be back next week for 2 solid hours. Maybe we'll channel some grandma next week and see what we can come up with. I love my grandmother, trust me, but she had some strange views left over from those days. And we'll talk about that next week. All right, guys, love you. Have a great holiday.